Alexey, good to have you on the show. Now, before we get to the protests, let's start off with the latest. Just moments ago, I was reading on the wires that the spokesperson for the opposition leader, Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, released a statement saying that she will be addressing the UN Security Council on Friday, at the end of the week. We already know what the EU stance is. We already know what Russia's stance is. Who is she going to be appealing to?
Well, obviously, it's going to be Western nations, because I don't think there's going to be any response coming. I'm talking about positive response or any sort of possible reception coming from, or favorable reception coming from Russia or Belarus, because we need to remember Belarus is also on United Nations Security Council. And in fact, what would be interesting to see is Russia's reaction to her speech, given the fact that Russia is a permanent member of the Security Council, has the power to exercise the right of the veto, and obviously Russia, given statements coming from Russia's President Vladimir Putin, is likely to block any possible resolution with respect to what's currently happening in Belarus, because Putin made it very clear that Russia doesn't want any foreign interference happening there. And in fact, Russia has de facto assumed the role of being this mediator, spokesperson for Belarus, because you don't really see Lukashenko interacting with any of the Western leaders, rather than he delegated this authority to Putin.
Okay, Alexey, I mean, another weekend, more large protests, but it's looking like this weekend, this past weekend, felt a bit different, not in terms of the protesters' demands, but how the police and security forces actually reacted. I mean, did you get that feeling as well?
Well, yes, there was obviously a period of relative calm. I think the authorities realized that, disproportionate brutality is not going to make them look good. In fact, the Russians even questioned the level of violence that they have observed on the streets of Minsk and other cities. I mean, there were problems with detention of journalists, including Russian journalists, and obviously that created a massive backlash. But again, I think Lukashenko is still struggling to work out what is the most effective way out of this, because on one hand, he's trying to preserve this image of being the strong person and showing off with a machine gun from time to time, claiming that he's going to fight for presidency until his last breath. On the other hand, he's reaching out to the workers. He has gone out to meet those who were on strike, whilst combining attempts to demonstrate that he's willing to listen to them with threats that they would be laid off should they not suspend their strike activities. But I think there is still a bit of a paralysis of power. But I think since the initial protest, the situation has changed dramatically.
Alexey, okay. Let me ask you. I mean, as the president sort of gauges what his next move is going to be, I mean, what's going to determine what happens next in the country? I mean, is it going to be the determination of the protesters, or whether or not Lukashenko's security forces stay loyal to him, or perhaps even external factors like what Russia's stance is going to be from now?
Well, to answer your question, obviously the security and defense apparatus will remain loyal to Lukashenko. Lukashenko invested enormous resources in beefing up its security apparatus, in supporting national defense capabilities. So the military and police are likely to remain loyal to him unless he will give them an order to shoot and kill, and that might start creating some moral dilemmas for some of the uniformed personnel. Russia is the key here, because I think Lukashenko, whilst driving anti-Russian rhetoric and making it part of his election campaign, he actually ended up being caught in the corner with no way out, because there is no way how the West will be willing to talk to him right now after human rights abuses and after effectively saying that they question the outcome of the elections. And on one hand, he intimidated alienated Putin with all his anti-Russia rhetoric prior to the elections, and now trying to plead to Putin with regards to assistance, with regards to offering political and other support. And I think Putin, whilst making it very clear that he has the capacity and reserves to send into Belarus, effectively gave Lukashenko a timeline to sort out the mess at home and to mitigate the situation to the best capacity he can. So it's not just about Lukashenko's survival in Belarus, but it's also about demonstrating to the only patron that Lukashenko and his regime currently has, Russia, that Lukashenko is in fact capable of managing the internal situation in Belarus.
Okay, Alexey Muraviev live for us from Perth. Thank you. I do appreciate your analysis.